Clark. Order. To honor the memory of our late colleague, I understand there have been discussions among representatives of all parties in the House to have some members make statements to tribute him. I now recognize the Minister of Labour and Status of Women.
Mr. Speaker, I ask everyone to pause and look at their dictionary this morning. Under Irish, you'll see a leprechaun with a twinkle in his eye and fierce determination behind them. My good friend. It is with sadness that I stand in this place of honor today to pay tribute to a great national leader, a colleague, a mentor, my champion, and a very close friend, the Honourable James Michael Flaherty. As Darcy McGee said, "Am I remembered in Erin? I charge you, speak me true. Has my name a sound, a meaning, in the scenes my boyhood knew?" Jim Flaherty's name has a meaning for all Canadians, a meaning of respect, of passion for country, and for empathy for others. The deep sense of shock and loss we all felt at Jim's passing yesterday tells us how much of a part of all of our lives he had become. Whatever our politics or local interests, Jim Flaherty was so clearly working hard every day for what he saw as our country's economic interests. As one of the country's longest-serving finance ministers and the longest-serving Conservative finance minister, as he used to remind me regularly, Jim truly made a difference in the lives of Canadians by lowering taxes, introducing initiatives such as the Children's Fitness Tax Credit, by creating the tax-free savings accounts and the Registered Disability Savings Plan. His acute intellect, his immense compassion for the disadvantaged and the disabled, his global reach on international monetary and regulatory challenges were all part of his deep humanity and decency. He gave his all to serve a country he loved. As he said just 3 weeks ago when he departed as the Minister of Finance, "We live in the greatest country in the world, and I want Canadians to know that it has been my honor and privilege to serve." Despite his unwavering commitment to public service, Jim never lost sight of what was truly important. He loved his family, he loved his hometown of Whitby, and he loved to kick back with a tall glass of Guinness as often as he could. Jim never forgot the humble working-class roots that were established at the dinner table with his family in Lachine, Quebec. In fact, while attending Princeton and later earning a law degree, Jim bussed tables and cafeterias and drove a cab. He believed in hard work, and I think he mentioned that often, and making a positive difference in the lives of Canadians. It was with this can-do attitude that he became a mentor and a champion for me personally and for many of his colleagues, both in this place and abroad. For me, I can speak to him being my champion on two specific occasions. I was at a conference in Albuquerque, New Mexico, of all places, in 2006. And he was a newly minted finance minister. He called me and asked me if I would chair a panel on the Children's Fitness Tax Credit. He said to me that they needed some health expertise, and that didn't exist at Finance Canada. He wanted someone from the healthcare profession. The opportunity that he granted me in doing that, a young Canadian, a Canadian who was but 35 years of age, was that I had my first experience of the development of excellent public policy. I could take my professional background and apply it to public policy and millions of Canadians became the beneficiary. I've been very privileged as an orthopedic surgeon. I meet hundreds of patients in clinic, children, parents. But public policy, as we all know in this place, impacts all Canadians in a meaningful way, and he understood that. He taught me that, and it created a passion for me at one point in time so that I would then move forward. And yet again, in 2010, I was standing in clinic, and this short Irishman called me and said, "I hear you're running for office." And I said, "I am not running for office." He said, "But I hear you are running for office," or in the kind of tone of, "I have decided you are running for office." And I said to him, "Well, you know, I don't recognize that there's an election going on right now. Maybe we should have a conversation about this." But he explained to me the circumstances in my home riding and encouraged me to run in the nomination. And he was persistent. It was not something I was wont to do. In fact, he called probably every day, if not every second day, for 5 months. And if you know his fierce determination, as I do, I think many people in this place do, you finally just say yes, because it's easier than taking the calls. He often got his way that way, and persistence being one of his great attributes. And for that, I had the opportunity to be involved in a nomination and now to stand in this place. He reached out across Canada, across party lines, across business and labor divides, to seek consensus and advance fairness, something that I hope to emulate during my time in public service. I know no one who expresses that more than Jim Flaherty. When the shock and crushing news reached the chamber yesterday, I was delighted to hear that the long knives that typify question period in a competitive parliamentary system were set aside for a moment of common humanity, consolation, and people reaching out to each other beyond bipartisan divisions. The Jim Flaherty I knew, the Jim Flaherty we all know, would have approved of that. And for those of you who don't know, back in the late 60s, Jim did in fact canvass for Pierre Elliott Trudeau, and he always used to say that his sister made him do it because he was the baby brother. It's also a sad day when Jim recently retired as Minister of Finance, not only because we were losing the greatest finance minister this country has ever seen, but because his new seat, assignment, in the House of Commons was directly behind me. Now, time and time again, over the last 3 weeks, he had teased me relentlessly. In fact, vowed to make up rabbit ears behind my head while I was speaking. But unfortunately, he never made it here. Jim will be so very missed and not forgotten. He will be remembered for his big Irish smile, the twinkle in his eye, his wicked sense of humor, and his trademark ties. And most importantly, his multiple public policy accomplishments over his nearly 20 years of public service. His legacy is immense. I'm confident that everyone in this chamber and every Canadian can point to something where Jim Flaherty touched their lives. His service was overwhelming. His friendship, for those of us who benefited from its breadth, warmth, depth, and humor, was the ultimate definition of loyalty. He loved his country and served it with a heart as big as the country itself. The gap he has left will not soon be filled. So, my friend, may the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sunshine warm upon your face. May the rain fall upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the hollow of his hands. To my dear friend Jim, I loved you immensely, my fierce friend, and I will miss you forever. Thank you.
The honourable member for Burnaby, New Westminster.
Mr. Speaker, Jim Flaherty was genuine, decent, and kind. Alors, c'est avec beaucoup de tristesse que la famille de Jim Flaherty.
So it's with great sadness that the NDP family learned of the passing of Jim Flaherty. I join with all New Democrats in offering our most sincere condolences to his wife, Christine Elliott, and his 3 sons, John, Galen, and Quinn, as well as other members of his family and his many friends. We salute his contribution and his dedication. We all recognize that over the 20 years of his public life, he discharged his responsibilities with determination and courage. We will remember him as an intelligent man, a dedicated man, who contributed to the well-being of the country. And I will particularly recall his joie de vivre and his typically Irish sense of humor.
Jim, this is talking about his family background and the city gates of Galway, where it is inscribed in Gaelic, "From the ferocious O'Flahertys, O Lord, deliver us." And Jim would deadpan, "You know, that's not bad training for finance minister." But as MP, as MPP, and as Minister of Finance, Jim Flaherty was a man who repeatedly demonstrated his love for public service, and he served his constituents and all Canadians with dedication, with conviction, and with hard work. In a speech that he gave to students at the University of Western Ontario in 2011, Jim laid out his own thoughts on the importance of public service, and this he demonstrated every day of his public service career. He said, "Public service reminds us all that there exists a genuine concept of the public good in the broad public interest. While we value individual liberty and protect it as Canadians, we also maintain a strong tradition of the public good. That is, what is good for society as a whole." And he reflected then on his experience listening to Robert Kennedy 40 years earlier. He said, "Today, about 40 years after I heard Kennedy speak, my message is the same. Canada needs you, your skills, talents, idealism, energy, and enthusiasm, now more than ever."
The sudden passing of Jim serves as a brutal reminder to us all that beyond the partisan functions we were elected for, we are human beings, and we have a lot more in common than the sum of our differences. Like Jim, we are here because we want to serve Canadians and give the best of ourselves.
Jim Flaherty's friendly and engaging demeanour, even in the face of the health challenges that we saw, showed his great strength of character. He was always affable. He was always friendly, and the members' gym in the elevator, whenever you met him, except the one exception being in question period, Mr. Speaker, where he was affable often, but very strong and eloquent as a debater. And as one of the many finance critics that he faced over the course of his career here, I can say all of us, we had to be very well prepared when we came up against Jim Flaherty in the House of Commons. Now, Mr. Speaker, all great people are profoundly motivated to make life better for others. And with Jim Flaherty among many other talents, that profound motivation led him to be a passionate advocate for people with disabilities. His deep love of his son John and keen understanding of the challenges and obstacles that Canadians with disabilities face every day and through the course of their lifetime led him to push for the creation of the Registered Disability Savings Plan. Now, this didn't garner headlines, Mr. Speaker, but it will benefit the lives of Canadians with disabilities for years and for decades to come. With that understanding, with decency and with common sense, Jim Flaherty made a difference in the lives of Canadians that are far too often marginalized and forgotten and ignored. Now, a few years ago, Jim wrote a column in the newsletter for the Canadian Association of Community Living about his son John and the joy that John gives the entire family. He wrote, "John sees clearly what we often miss in the cacophony of our lives. A few years ago, we were underwater in a submersible at the Great Barrier Reef in Queensland, looking out the window at the sun's rays shimmering through the turquoise waters on the colorful fish and plants, when John said simply and eloquently, 'That's what heaven looks like.' So now I know," wrote Jim. "Now I know." After nearly a decade of devoted service to our nation in one of the toughest jobs that exists, he looked forward to spending much more time with his loving family. And sadly, he was taken from them and taken from all of us at far too young an age. We will miss you, Jim Flaherty.
The honourable member for Kings Hants.
Mr. Speaker, just a few weeks ago, on March 18th, when Jim Flaherty retired from politics, we all expressed our best wishes to Jim, Christine, and family for their next promising chapter of life together.
It seems unfair that so soon after, we are bidding farewell to this great public servant, husband and father.
Christine, Quinn, Galen, and John, while Jim's time with you has been cut tragically short, his legacy, one of his enduring gifts to you, is the example Jim set with his life of public service. Jim and I sparred in the House and at committee, but away from the spotlight. We had a trusted and candid relationship. He used to call himself an old hockey player, and he was disciplined enough to be in the MP's gym just about every morning at 6:30 a.m. or before. Jim's locker was near mine in the men's changing area. We would often chat there, sometimes about policy and issues of the day, and we would enjoy a few laughs. Mind you, Jim's Irish sense of humor was tested by me from time to time. When later in the day, I would meet him somewhere, and he would be surrounded by caucus and cabinet colleagues, and I would say, "You know, Jim Flaherty's the first man I see naked every morning." Jim was even competitive when he congratulated me on the news of the impending birth of our twins. He winked at me and reminded me, "You know, we have triplets." Even then, and to his credit, Jim's greatest pride was his family. Jim was a tough, resilient warrior. He ran in 4 provincial elections. He lost his first time in 1990, but he came back to win in 1995, 99, and 2003. 3 federal elections he won his riding, and he ran in 2 leadership races. All told, that's about 700 days of campaigning, not including all the times he campaigned for others. Jim suffered losses, but his defeats neither stopped him nor defined him. He bounced back and went on to bigger and better things. His life sets a high bar and serves as a lesson to all of us and to his boys that there are no permanent victories or permanent defeats, just permanent battles. Jim never gave up. And all those campaigns, all those battles prepared him for what was ultimately his biggest battle, Canada's response to the global financial crisis. It was not easy. He faced immense ideological pressure to take a different approach. Ultimately, Jim knew what he had to do. He knew what Canada had to do. And he showed great international leadership in getting the job done. I met with Jim on January 28th in his office to discuss the upcoming budget. And I hadn't realized until then, that meeting, just how much he was suffering from his illness. And even so, he battled on, and he kept working, he kept serving the public. Jim believed profoundly in public life. In his own words, he probably put it best. Public service is good for you. It will give your life a greater impact on others and your country. The following words by Teddy Roosevelt make me think of Jim. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and at the worst, if he fails, he at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. On behalf of the leader of the Liberal Party and all of us, goodbye to an old hockey player and a happy warrior. Merci, Jim, pour ton engagement.
Thank you, Jim, for your commitment and all your services to Canada.
Thank you to Christine, Quinn, Galen, and John for sharing Jim with Canada.
L'honorable député de Haute-Gaspésie.
The honourable member for Haute-Gaspésie, Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, it was with astonishment, sadness and compassion that we learned, my colleagues and I, of the passing of Mr. Jim Flaherty, Member of Commons of the House of Commons since 2006 and also Minister of Finance until recently. It's important to point out that he held important positions politically in Ontario as well. Jim Flaherty made his mark on Canadian politics, in his way, with his values, doing what he felt was right and fair for the people of Canada and for his party. We'll remember him for the economic legacy he left as Minister of Finance, which marked the 21st century. Like all good politicians, he accomplished some good things, some not so good things depending on the partisan analysis, but he was always respectful and honest in his approach. Jim Flaherty had many qualities of a great man, a man of heart. He had an intelligent sense of humor, and on occasion, he even brought a smile to his fiercest adversaries. He was without question a man respected by all of his peers in the House of Commons. A very quick mind, a smile, and who gave a great deal to his community. On behalf of my colleagues in the Bloc Québécois, I want to offer my sincerest condolences to the family, loved ones, friends, and colleagues in the Conservative Party. Thank you.
The honourable member for Saanich, Gulf Islands.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. C'est un grand honneur pour moi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a great honor for me to speak today and to pay tribute to our extraordinary colleague, Jim Flaherty.
Many of us have, well, only rarely experienced a moment such as yesterday where all partisanship faded away and we absorbed the shocking news of the death of someone we knew and loved. So unexpected. I know the word has been used recently, unfair, but we all know we're all mortal and we can't really judge the fairness of a moment. We just know that all of us felt in our hearts that Jim Flaherty deserved his retirement, deserved the rest he so richly deserved. We've been aware, and as my colleague from King's Hants mentioned, only recently have we been really sharing stories of how much he was suffering and how he persevered. What an extraordinary work ethic to refuse to take time for his own rest when he was dealing with a condition that was both painful and difficult and exhausting for him. But he didn't put himself first, he put his country first. One of the moments I didn't know about, one of the sides of his personality, doesn't surprise me at all, was hearing yesterday from the Green Party candidate from Whitby, Oshawa, Rebecca Harrison, who was completely broken up. She had shared with him, she said, the laughs after all candidates' meetings, that he'd stay and share, that he'd ask her out for a beer. I mean, such kindness, such humanity, and ultimately someone who loved other people so much that he put partisanship aside so we could know what it was like to enjoy a joke with Jim. And he did enjoy his jokes. Yesterday, when I went over the aisle to console the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans, and she said, I was just going to send him this joke I'd found online. I thought he'd love it. So his sense of humor is what will stay with me, his compassion and his public service. I won't trespass any longer on all of our shared grief. I want to extend my condolences to Christine, to his sons, John, Galen, and Quinn, to all of our colleagues in this place who worked with him in the Conservative Party, the Prime Minister, to everyone who is at this moment shattered, broken up, and understanding that we will not see Jim Flaherty again on this mortal plane. But forgive me if I recognize that Jim Flaherty was a man of faith, and for those who are of no faith, please forgive me that I reflect that we part company now and enter into the break to observe the most sacred portion of the Christian calendar, where we go through Palm Sunday, Holy Week, Good Friday, and ultimately recognize that Jesus Christ broke the bonds of death, and we celebrate resurrection. I hope that those moments will give some comfort to Jim and his family, because Jim Flaherty was a man of deep faith, and those of us of faith know that he is in, as they say, a better place, but the best place. Rest eternal grant unto him, O Lord. Let perpetual light shine upon him. Amen.
I would now invite all members to stand and have a moment of silence in memory of Mr. Flaherty. Thank you. As difficult it is on a day like today, we do have a few minutes of business to conduct. I'll now recognize the member for Winnipeg North.
So thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is a sad day indeed, and I will be very brief. We adjourned the House quickly yesterday upon hearing the very tragic news of Mr. Flaherty's passing, and while I understand that we'll be adjourning today's sitting in a few moments, I'd like to ask for the unanimous consent for the following motion, which has been negotiated among the parties. That in relation to the opposition motion in the name of Mr. Sims, debated Thursday, April 10, 2014, the question be deemed put, and that pursuant to order made that day, the recorded division be held on Monday, April 28, 2014, at the expiry of the time provided for government orders.
Does the honourable member have the unanimous consent of the House for this motion? Carried. I have the honour to inform the House that a communication has been received which is as follows. Mr. Speaker, I have the honour to inform you that the Right Honourable David Johnston, Governor-General of Canada, signified royal assent by written declaration to the bills listed in the schedule to this letter on the 10th day of April 2014 at 3:40 p.m., signed by Patricia Jayton, Deputy Secretary. The bills assented to Thursday, April 10, 2004, an act respecting the election and term of office of chiefs and councillors of certain First Nations and the composition of council of those First Nations, Bill C-9, an act to amend the Criminal Code and the National Defence Act, brackets mental disorder, Bill C-14. J'ai l'honneur d'informer la Chambre.
I have the honor to inform the House that a communication
Voici le texte a été
has been received
le 10 avril 2014. Monsieur le Président,
April 10, 2014. I have the honor to inform you, Mr. Speaker, that the Right Honourable David Johnson, Governor General for Canada, granted royal assent to the bills mentioned in Annex 2 of this letter, signed April 10th at 3:14. Yours sincerely, signed by the Undersecretary, Patricia Danton.
Projet de loi ayant reçu la sanction royale.
Bill having received royal assent
Concernant l'élection et le mandat de chef et de conseiller de certains
an act dealing with the band councils and the composition of their respective councils. Bill C9,
modifiant le code criminel.
an act amending the Criminal Code, the National Defense Act,
Projet de loi C14.
Bill C14.
Now recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, with respect to order paper questions number 309 and 310, responses to which are due today, I wish to table in both official languages documents containing the government's responses to those questions. Finally, Mr. Speaker, as a mark of this Chamber's honour for the memory of the late member for Whitby Ajax, Whitby Oshawa, a man who was a distinguished public servant for 2 decades and a beloved friend and colleague of us all, I move, seconded by the House Leader of the Official Opposition, that this House do now adjourn.
Does the Honourable Government House Leader have unanimous consent? By unanimous consent, the House adjourns out of respect for the late Mr. Flaherty, MP for Whitby, Oshawa. This House stands adjourned until Monday, April 28, 2014, at 11 a.m., pursuant to Standing Order 28, Sub 2.